Hi everyone, it's Victor speaking, and I wanted to make a video about what is going on in Afghanistan. So I have received altogether 77 emails to ask about my astrological insight about the situation, what is going on in Afghanistan, and it happened within a day. So now if you know me, then you know that I hate politics and I tend to put my hand in the sand. But 77 is actually quite a magical number. It's something to do with spirituality. Plus, I've seen that plenty of you are interested in this matter, so I've decided to break it down for you from an astrological perspective. Now, I would like everyone to refrain themselves from any type of political comments, because this channel is not about that. It's pure astrology. I think it's a great time actually to kind of show you how I work with certain timing techniques. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the chart behind me, and then you will be able to see what exactly I'm talking about. So that's one thing. Another disclaimer is, which I would like to put out there, that I don't know much about politics, but I will give a go. This is more about the mundane astrology and interpreting the energy of the planets and trying to understand what is going on in a country from a spiritual perspective. Now, I do have two more announcements to make, so bear with me. One of them is that I will be making a 3-week solar return chart course, which is going to start on the 18th of September. It's going to be 3 weekends, so 3 days, 3 times about 4-5 hours. So altogether, it's going to be minimum of 12 hours, somewhere 12 to 15 hours. And I will introduce totally new approaches to the solar return chart, such as how to use the hermetic lot, how to see patterns in the solar return chart, because there are patterns there. For instance, the moon has got 19 possible positions, but 19 possible degree positions. So I'm gonna kind of show you how to work with that. The moon and the Saturn will have a cycle as well in the solar return chart, or when the midheaven is actually changing modality, then what to expect around those times. So there is a lot more to solar return chart than what you can find online. So if you would like to sign up for this minimum 12-hour course, which I think will be one of the most intense one in regards to solar return chart, then go on my website, which is AstroViktor.com, and then book your place now. Another disclaimer there is that I took the timing of birth of Afghanistan from the Astro data bank. So I'm not too sure how accurate it is, but actually it reflects some of the keys of what's happening right now pretty well. So actually, let's break it down. What I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be explaining what transits I'm seeing, what solar arc energies I'm seeing, what progression I'm seeing, and also what progress declination I'm seeing. There are another timing techniques I also use, but those are the least popular ones. And I know the progress declination is might be something which is completely new for everyone, but I have made a recent webinar about that, which is actually a fantastic timing technique tool. And also you don't necessarily need an exact timing of birth for that either. So that's actually brilliant. Now, one of the things which you can see is, and you're going to see the progression and the transit charts behind me. You can see that the progress midheaven is actually in conjunction to the transiting Saturn in the 10th house. Now, this conjunction actually has become exact on the 15th of August. And there will be another conjunction happening on the 6th of December as well between them two. So let's just think about a minute what it could indicate for us. So Saturn rules actually the 10th house and the 9th house in the chart, and the midheaven is actually placed in the 9th house as well. So that is going to be something about governmental restructuring energies. And the midheaven is where the country is heading currently. So of course, Saturn is something which is restricting things, but also it formalizes and crystallizes things, and it even introduces new rules as well. So this is one of the indications which shows that maybe the country is going through some type of restructuring energies at the moment. And as I said, there is going to be another conjunction happening between the progress midheaven and the transiting Saturn at the beginning of December. So it might be whatever is starting now, some of the bits and bobs will be formalized or crystallized towards the end of the year. So that's one thing you can see in the 10th house. Another important constellation which actually popped up to me straight away was the solar arc sun, or the progress sun, which is being close by to the transiting Pluto. They are 3 degrees apart, so Pluto is walking backwards at the moment, and then eventually the sun will reach that in a couple of years' time. So it's kind of going to catch up to, I mean, it's going to try to catch up to Pluto. It won't necessarily reach it fully, but it will try its hardest. But no matter what, they are in conjunction to each other. So Pluto is the planet of power, and the sun is something to do with the leader of the country. So this could show some type of crisis situation around the leadership in the country. Okay, and by the way, the progress sun is currently sitting on the natal midheaven as well, which is again show maybe some type of governmental changes which might be expected in the near future. Now, if I want to be breaking down a little bit that Saturnian energy, the Saturn, the transit Saturn in conjunction to the progress midheaven, I would like to mention that Saturn is actually falling onto Aquarian beacon and Aquarius sign as well, which is all about freeing something up and an emotional distance, really, and it can become very rebellious as well. But it talks mainly about the freedom. Now, it does fall into Aries Dwad. Now, I've made a couple of videos about what a Dwad is. Dwad is covering actually 2.5 degrees within one segment of 10 degrees. So that's an Aries Dwad, which is very feisty, right? So it started when Saturn actually started hitting 7.5 degrees of that Aquarius. That's the Aries Dwad there. Okay, so Aries is very much about, again, fight and pushing through, and something to do with kind of like protecting ourselves in a sense. And that 9 degree is actually Capricorn degree, which talks about hardship and governmental issues. Now, here I would like to mention that I don't use the Nicola type of degree theory. I use a different one from an astrologer from the 16th, 17th century. His name was actually Moran. That's the type of degree theory I use, just to put it out there, because it's a little bit different than what Nicola introduced a couple of years ago to us. Okay, now the Capricorn degree is again taking us back to that governmental type of things. Right, so we can clearly see that there is something going on within the government. Now, if you keep looking at this chart here, you will be able to see that transit Saturn actually also conjunct Neptune as well in the 10th house. Now, the 10th house overall is the government, right? So Neptune, which is a little bit wishy-washy, it makes things a little bit too fluidy and weak. So actually it could indicate something like that the government is going to give people false promises, or it could show that the government is sometimes a little bit wishy-washy and weak as well, but they can become deceptive. Now Saturn comes around and the reality hits hard, right? Because Saturn is kind of like the balloon popper. So whatever illusions we've got around the government, Neptune, actually Saturn hits that hard, and it says kind of wake up in the sign of Aquarius. Now, what we also know is that the 10th house could also represent the leader of the country. Neptune is the escapism. So, and if you know that the president actually escaped a couple of days ago, he announced that he chose to escape for being able to kind of protect his people. And that Neptune can show that very nicely for us. Now, let's just take it a little bit further. Obviously, this Saturn is very important in the chart because it rules the midheaven and it rules the 10th house as well. So basically, it talks about what actions the government is taking, right? And what you see is that Saturn being on 9 degree is actually having a semi-sextile to Mars. Now, if you look at that Mars a little bit closer, that Mars is actually the apex of a T-square. So you can see the Mars being in the sign of Pisces in the 11th house, squaring Saturn and squaring Pluto as well at the same time. So meaning that Pluto and Saturn have got an opposition going on. Now, I've made a video about T-square, so if you are interested in that, go back to that video. But the opposition is, very shortly, the opposition is something to do with the situation which needs to be resolved in a sense. And we've got some type of, it happens in the 2nd and the 8th house, which is very much about the financial axis. And it also talks about some crisis situation. So there is some power struggle going on between the government and maybe some financial matters which need to be actually considered here. But together, Pluto and Saturn is all about destroying something and then rebuilding that structure again from scratch. Now, the apex planet of this T-square is the Mars, which is the planet of fight. That talks about soldiers and that talks about protecting something and standing up for our own rights. And because it's in the sign of Pisces, it also has got a spiritual meaning as well. Standing up for something what we believe for, right? So that is definitely very, very interesting. Now, this Mars is also very prominent here because this Mars is on 29 degree 50 minutes by solar arc in the sign of Pisces. So by solar arc, by solar arc, being on the 29 degree is kind of like a summary degree there. It's an end of something, okay? Now, it could indicate an end of an era for them, but what's interesting is that Mars is ready to move into the sign of Aries very shortly. So that Mars is gonna get recharged there. And what's going to happen straight away is that Mars is going to be squaring the Saturn-Chiron conjunction in the 9th house. So that talks about some identity issue within the country. Of course, it's going to be very charged up Mars. So actually, I'm fighting for the country in a sense. Sun ruling, by the way, the 4th house, which is fighting for the lands. Okay. So that Mars becomes extremely prominent, but that's not the only one which happens here. By the way, the Saturn-Sun conjunction, Sun and Chiron conjunction could be really talking about the leader, the wounded leader, right? So Chiron is something to do with weakness and sickness and something to do with karmic type of energies. And the Sun is actually the leader of the country. So that might show that the country has got a very weak leader. I would like to point out that that Sun is also conjuncting the South Node. And the South Node also conjunct Venus as well, which is the chart ruler here. So it kind of shows some type of repeated karmic matters, which the country has to kind of solve, and Mars, the solar arc Mars will actually trigger that. Not just the solar arc Mars triggers that, by the way, but progress moon as well. Very shortly, in about 5 months time, and then 10 months later, it's going to trigger the Sun also. So I kind of see that in 10 months time, there is going to be very significant changes happening in the country. But I'm also going to be coming back to that. Now, Keep looking at this solar arc chart, because what you also see that Saturn just changed sign a week before. So it's changed sign around the 8th, 9th of August, and actually it went into the sign of Cancer. Now, Cancer is basically a country energy, but it also very much talks about the fall of the government. Why is that? Because Saturn represents the midheaven here, which is in the 10th house, which is the government, right? And literally speaking, Saturn is in a detriment position in the sign of Cancer. So that kind of like talks about the detrimental power of the government. And it gets really highlighted this time around, okay? So that shows to me that new governmental energies will be structuring. Now, also you will be able to see that Saturn, that solar arc Saturn, is actually opposing, bang on opposing in 6 months' time, the Sun also. And the Sun is the leader, but also it is the ruler of the 4th house. So somehow the government and the country are opposing each other. Now, I know that there were plenty of promises made that women can go back to school and they can work and they can express themselves a lot more. And then these promises didn't really happen. Now, if you keep looking at this chart, if you go back a little bit, you will be able to see that transiting Saturn wasn't only conjunct in the progressed midheaven, but it was also conjunct in the progressed Mercury as well. And Mercury rules the 5th house. Now, the 5th house is something to do with self-expression. So those false promises with that Neptune, Saturn, Mercury energy, what was made is very much highlighted here for us at the moment, okay? But Mercury also rules the 2nd house in the chart. So that could talk about financial restrictions or running out of some type of resources or not having enough of resources to kind of support people or stuff like that. So it could talk about food, it could talk about actually having enough bullets for the guns and so forth. Now, again, the progress chart is going to be on the screen, so you will be able to see that transit Neptune is actually in conjunction to the progressed Mars as well. So it could be confusions around orders, confusion of the soldiers. They don't necessarily know what to do. But Mars also rules the 12th house here, which could indicate that some secrets will be actually popping out. Or it could unfortunately talk about the suffer of underprivileged people. It could even show some type of poverty as well overall. Now, as I mentioned, you could see that the progressed moon is actually sitting in the 8th house. So, and that's something to do with power struggle. Moon being very close by to the south node as well, which could talk about the loss of a power. So moon also gets activated next year by Neptune, who will be having 5 conjunctions to the moon in the next 2 years. And that could also talk about some type of losses, griefs, sorrows as well. So I feel like the country will be going through a very significant change in the next couple of years. I would like to point out that the progress ascendant will also be changing sign in 2023 in May. So the country will be having a new perspective actually, but before it happens, it unfortunately meets Sedna on 29 degree. And Sedna is a kind of like an asteroid, which is very much about like sorrow and anger and frustration. So I feel like the country will be going through some type of pain or riot or some type of demolishing energies. And the progress ascendant will be on 29 degree of Taurus, which is actually the weeping goddesses, the weeping sisters of the goddesses. So that kind of indicates some type of, again, the feminine power, the rise of the feminine power on one hand, but on the other hand, it very much talks about that there will be plenty of crying as well. Now, and lastly, you will now see on the screen the progressed moon declination chart. So what you see here is that the progressed moon is actually crossing the natal midheaven at the bottom. So the natal planets are going to be these dotted lines, and the progressed moon is this curvy one. And you can see that also it hits the progress sun declination energy as well. So that again changes in the dynamics of the country. So I feel like the country will be reborn. Now, the progress moon is actually hitting the lowest point shortly, which is going to be in 2023. To be precise, again, we kind of see the May energy coming up there, the strongest. Yes, April, May, June. But then after, the progress moon is going to start climbing up. So it means that the country will be improving significantly from 2023 May. And I've also seen that the progress Juno is in one point going to be going into the 5th house as well, which is kind of telling me that there is going to be some type of marriage changes coming up also there. But anyway, that's a different story. So I know it was a little bit of an advanced video because I kind of spoke about 4 timing techniques here. If you are unfamiliar with them, probably stop the video at every single timing technique and then have a look at what I might be talking about. But this situation is very unfortunate, and I just send my prayers to people who are involved. But I feel like the next couple of years for them is a little bit challenging. So thank you very much, everyone, for choosing me and being with me. If you like the video, press like, and also ring the notification bell so you can get information when my next video is coming up. Have a lovely week, everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye.